Coming to you live from downtown Windsor, this is a St. Clair College MediaPlex production.
From the Plex, I'm Zachary Balog.
And I'm Grace Little.
And you're watching
the MediaPlex Insider. Zach is here with a Did You Know? So Zach, tell us, what exactly do you know?
Right behind me is the historic Essex Railway Station. This train hub was built in 1887 by the Michigan Central Railway Company, and this was when Essex was the main transportation hub. In 1907, the building suffered major damage when a rail box car carrying nitroglycerin exploded, causing damage to the station as well as nearby buildings. The building was restored at the time and continued to serve the community for many years. Eventually, passenger service was discontinued and the building stood empty. Efforts to preserve the building began in 1975 and continued until the completion of the restoration in 1994.
This was the scene moments after an explosion and fire early last Thursday morning. The explosion demolished almost a block of the town's main street, shook some residents literally out of their beds, and blew windows out for blocks.
The station not only suffered one explosion, but two. A blast rocked Essex on February 14, 1980, causing significant damage to the town. However, the station did escape the worst of the damage. Today, the station contains a variety of railway memorabilia and artifacts of historical interest. Visitors can take self-directed tours by means of a tour booklet, or group tours can be arranged if prior notice is given. The more you know. For the MediaPlex and Zach Tech Productions, I'm Zachary Balog. Joe is back with more tips and tricks and proving once again that cars aren't that scary.
Oh, hello everyone. I'm Joseph Bedard with the MediaPlex, and this is Cars Just Aren't That Scary, a segment of the show where I teach you some tips and tricks on how to do some basic vehicle maintenance, even if you've never touched a car before. Today, we're going to be doing something with electrical, which sounds scary, I'm aware, but it's very simple. Let's get started. Now, normally when you're driving down the road and you have to make a turn, you need to use your turn signal, and this is the sound you will hear. However, something that a lot of people don't know is cars have a built-in indicator to tell you if one of your turn signals are bad, and it is when you hear an uncommon rhythm, usually when it's sped up, like this. When your turn signal is sped up like that on the inside of the cabin, that means one of your turn signals are bad, and you need to look around and see which light is burnt out. So, to do that, you just keep your turn signal on, walk around the car, and look to see if any of your turn signals are off. So you flip it this way, you will see that the front is flashing, but it is flashing faster to give other drivers the awareness that, hey, one of my turn signals are out. You come to the mirror and you notice it is flashing a lot faster as well. However, we go around to the back and we notice there's no turn signal. So that is where our problem lies. So let's get that replaced. When replacing your turn signal, it's not as easy as it used to be. You can't just get into the trunk and open up a little flap and your turn signal's right there. You actually have to take out the whole housing. But that's a lot easier than you'd expect. So what we're gonna do is open the trunk, like so. And now, we need to get back there. So, there's that little pouch. You can see, all you do is you basically put a thumb there and just kind of fiddle around with it until it comes out. It's kind of just like that. And you're gonna see, you got a wing nut here that you gotta deal with, and then up here is a wing nut there. What you have to do is unscrew both of those, they're just hand tight. You unscrew those, and then the whole rear tail light will be able to come out. So, I'm gonna take those out and show you what we do next. And now that we've done all that work, we're gonna be able to just grab this, there. And that did require a little bit of force, but because it does hook in right there as well. Because now that we have the housing out, all we have to do is take out the bulb for the turn signal. Since the turn signal's in the middle, we would take out that socket, which you can kind of see is already taken out. And that's mainly just for the fact that I needed to simulate a broken turn signal bulb. So you would take that out, grab the bulb, pull it slowly and carefully, and then you're going to put a new bulb in. So this is my original bulb. To be able to double check that you have the right bulb, you're going to look at the bottom there and you see where it says SYL 12 volt, that is Silvana 12 volt, the brand. 3757 AK, you're going to try to get a bulb that has that number. You don't want to go over 12 volts, you don't want to get the wrong bulb because the bulb can actually melt the plastic that it's in if you get the wrong one. So all I'm doing is putting the new bulb into the socket. With gloves, I'm carefully pressing the bulb down until I hear it click. Now that's clicked into place. Now that the bulb is clicked into place, all we have to do is put it into that socket. You'll see a couple plastic notches here. Those will just line up with that and you will twist. Now, all that is required is putting the socket into the housing slot and twisting it until it locks into place. Usually it doesn't take this much time, however, I was just trying to be gentle and not break the bulb. Now that your bulb is back in its socket, it is pushed into the housing and locked in place. All you have to do is put the housing back in its place and put the wing nuts back on the studs. Alrighty, so the taillight's back in. If you grab it and shake it, it ain't going anywhere. So now we're gonna go back in the car, start it up, test the turn signal, see if it's still making the really quick flash, and just come back here and make sure it's blinking properly. Alright, so signal right. We know that side didn't have a problem, so that's the rhythm it's supposed to be at. And now we go left side. Seems to be the same rhythm. Let's go double check and make sure that that is blinking the correct amount. So we go to the front, blinking like normal. Look at the mirror, blinking like normal. And we come to the back, and we can see it is now blinking like normal. And with that, you're pretty much good to go. As long as your turn signal is actually working and you got out and checked it, as well as your turn signals inside the car are at the appropriate rhythm, everything's all done. Now it's best to change both signals at the same time, so if your back left ends up burning out, it's probably best to change the back right as well, because if one's gonna go, the other one's going shortly. But that's not exactly mandatory. You can wait for it to burn out and then just replace it again. So anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Joseph Bedard with the MediaPlex. I hope I've shown you that cars just aren't that scary. And I will see you in the next one.
The alternative fashion scene is alive and well in Windsor.
Here's Grace with a report.
There is a new community called Asylum that is gaining momentum and steampunk here in Windsor at none other than Villain's Bistro. The name of the game here is alt fashion, which creates looks heavy in black eyeliner, goth fashions, alternative perspectives, and of course rebelling against the status quo. This up-and-coming group was created by John, who goes by the stage name DJ Rave. Here is John with more.
My name is John, or DJ Rave, the founder and showrunner for Asylum Windsor. Like, our very first asylum was upstairs in a 50-person room. As time has gone on, we found that by eliminating a cover charge with the idea that we're just here to give people a community that don't have a community anywhere else, word of mouth is really spread. So we have a fairly young crowd. We have a lot of people, 19, 20, 22, all the way up to their 60s. That come. We have people come from Chicago, from Cleveland, Detroit, Toronto. We've got someone from here from Hamilton tonight. We've got a few people in from London. We get people down from Sarnia. And it's just because there's a belief in community amongst those that don't have it. You know, asylum's not a reference to an insane asylum. An asylum is a place of sanctuary. Something you seek, something you claim when you need it. And that's what we try to provide for everybody. If you don't have a community of your own, come be part of ours.
My name is Grace Little, and you're watching the MediaPlex Insider. Let's head over to Zach with a look at the weather and how come the weather is going to mess with my sleep this weekend.
It seems to be really anything. It's snowing, it's fog, just something to blame Zach for. Anyway, we do got to talk about daylight savings time, because don't forget to spring your clocks forward 1 hour this Saturday night. And also, did you know British Columbia is looking to abolish daylight savings time? All right, let's take a look at the weather across the region. Right now we're looking at 1 degree here in Windsor, 2 in Amherstburg, 3 in Essex, 1 in Kingsville, and moving out east, Leamington, -2 degrees with that chilly lake air. All right, let's take a look at that 3-day forecast right now. Wednesday, we have a high of 8 and mostly cloudy conditions. Thursday, rain most of the day with a high of 9. And on Friday, we have a chance for not only showers, but thunderstorms with a high of 14 degrees. And as you can see, beyond that, 15 on Saturday and back to above normal conditions for into next week. Back to you, Grace.
Looking to unwind and relax? Well, as Kelly Scheffler explains, there are some creative ways.
Me llamo Juan Manuel Chávez, más conocido como Baby. Tengo 19 años y toco el cello. Este cello está hecho de una lata de aceite, la madera tirada en la basura y las clavijas son de una vieja cuchara para golpear la carne y para hacer el ñoquis. Y suena así.
I'd like to introduce you to the Recycled Orchestra of Keturah. Since 2012, their goal has been to use instruments made from scrap materials collected from their local landfill. I've recently gotten into watercolor painting, and I find it's good for my mental health, especially as a form of self-care. It lets me relax my mind, focus on something that feels creative, even if I'm just painting in a traced stencil. As any crafting enthusiast can tell you, getting supplies for a new hobby can be tricky and expensive, but I'm here to show you how to start watercolor painting on a budget. Today we're going to be painting a Christmas light. Yes, I know we're not even close to Christmas, but this image perfectly demonstrates that you can experiment with watercolor even if you can't afford more expensive supplies. I'll take a moment and give credit to Andrea Nelson for her tutorial. This is a very badly drawn version of hers. And this watercolor paper I got at our local dollar store. So I'm going to start by making a few little puddles of water and getting a color that I like, some purple. Now, everything you see here, the paper, the paints, the brushes, not this little water container, for example, but everything else was bought at our local dollar store. I do recommend painter's tape because it can be very helpful taping something down to a flat surface to keep it from bubbling up while you're wetting it. So we're going to start with some purple. You want a nice dense color. And then what you're going to do is you're going to dilute it a little bit, because what you want is a little bit of a glow around your Christmas lights. Now keep in mind, working on dollar store paper isn't going to be the same as working on cotton watercolor paper, but that's a great way to start learning. So we'll start with a bit of a diluted purple, and I'm going to be trying to work quickly to give it plenty of time to dry, but you also don't want to put too much water on your paper, especially if it's a little bit more inexpensive. I'm going to this little fan here, also very handy, also from the dollar store, and I am pretty impatient when it comes to waiting for things to dry, so I'm just going to set my little fan up right here, and it will help our watercolor to dry. Now in the meantime, what I want to do is give you a few tips. So for example, if you can't find watercolor paper or something labeled watercolor paper at the dollar store, this is a page from just a regular sketchbook. Now, you're not going to be able to do as much with it. But as you can see, I was still able to get the little glow around the Christmas light. You just can't do what they call overworking the paper, because you'll start to go through it, you'll start to rip the paper. You have to be gentle and you have to be very careful and let it dry in between each layer. But it is possible, and it's a great way to practice skills before you actually start with cotton watercolor paper, which can be kind of expensive and a little intimidating to work with. The way I calculated the basic price of this was, it was about $2 to $4 for each piece of equipment here, minus the fan, which is I think $5. So for about $10 to $20, you can get everything you need to start practicing watercolor. You don't have to wait until you have a lot of money to put into really expensive materials. Another suggestion I'd like to make is the paper, for example. You can get some really lovely cotton watercolor paper at Michael's, but if you hunt around online, you can find some really good bargains if you're price comparing. The other thing is that with, for example, Amazon, they have some really good starter sets for around $20 to $30 with lots of colors and lots of options. That's okay. Like I said, I was going to be kind of whiffing this part until we get towards the end. So, all right. So now that we have our little glow around our Christmas bulb, we're going to come in again and we're going to put a bit more color on it. Okay, so you're going to want to let that dry before you do anything else with it. But as you can see here, you have that little purple outline. You have the darker color here. You can leave a little white space to kind of make it look like it's even more of a Christmas light. Ultimately, there will always be top-of-the-line supplies for any hobby, but there are many ways to embrace creativity without straining your wallet. It can be frustrating using cheaper materials, but it is a great way to get in the confidence that builds It is a great way to get in the practice that builds confidence you'll want when you finally have a chance to use the good stuff. For MediaPlex News, I'm Kelly Scheffler.
Mark Jones is a man who is making a difference for those who would enjoy accessible playgrounds. Sarita Varanasi reports.
Braden, where do you want to go first?
On
that one, okay.
Mark Jones is on his way to meet a boy he calls his hero.
I've always had an infatuation for playgrounds since I was a kid.
This is Braden St. Louis. Due to his autism, Down syndrome, and hip dysplasia, this is one of the few playgrounds he can enjoy. Jones builds accessible playgrounds across Windsor, Essex. Accessible means the playground is safe and functional for children with disabilities.
I would say well over 100, and in the last 3 years, probably about 15 fully accessible ones.
For Jones, safety is a priority, but fun is the objective.
That's what I like to hear. A child who's using a wheelchair should look at the playground and say, I want to go play there. And a child who is a hockey player and a stud athlete, what have you, would look at that and say, I want to go play there.
Big or small, Jones says the design process is simple.
I don't ever have a problem. I'll go to the site and I'll just visualize it with the surroundings and what have you. I don't know how to explain it. It's just something that I have, and I'm lucky to have it, and I always like to think outside the box.
Jones is a builder and always has been, but there's a reason why playgrounds hold a special place in his life.
I've never told anybody this because there is the stigma out there. I myself have an attention deficit issue, and I always have.
For Jones, long conversations and tedious classes can be a challenge.
I just could not take things in, and back then nobody really knew anything about these different challenges, so I just felt maybe I was a little slower than everybody else.
As a child, playtime was when Jones felt most happy.
Whenever I was outside doing sports, but more importantly, playing on playgrounds where it's unstructured, I was in heaven.
Twyla St. Louis is Braden's mother and says her son's progress on the playground surprised her.
We've been told that, he wasn't going to walk again, and you can see all the things that he's actually doing, and it actually challenges him more to do more things because there's so much to explore. He really is is doing a lot more than we ever expected him to.
Before 2014, Braden had trouble walking, but could still play on regular playgrounds.
We were taking Braden to playgrounds before he was in a wheelchair. And when we would take him, he would do certain things, but then things got harder for him to do.
So they built a backyard playground.
We built the playground within days of when we got the diagnosis that his hips were dislocated.
There you go. All right.
He's got the memory of being in a playground and being able to do these things, and the frustration of he wants to do it, he's trying to do it, he's hurting himself doing it. To watch him not be able to go up the rock climbing wall was personally a very heartbreaking moment. And to have him go, help, help, and we'd physically have to help him and lift his legs so that he could actually go up the wall.
Yay! Yeah.
After struggling to play for years, Braden discovered Play McGivney.
You want to go that one? To the boat? To the boat?
This time, his shouts were not of pain, but of excitement.
Oh! Ready?
There's no better feeling than that. Money is not an issue to me. I don't care about money. I drive an old truck. I don't care. It's the smiles on these kids' face. That's everything.
Mark Jones has an amazing heart. Like, he's kind, he's wonderful, he's visionary. It engenders kids' imagination. Imagination is amazing. That is what all of the inventions have been built on, is kids being able to imagine, growing up into adults who can imagine.
Jones waved goodbye to the St. Louis family on that day at the park and got into his truck.
He enjoyed that playground immensely, which makes my job so much fun. I don't have the words for it. I was just so happy today. It was incredible.
Whatever the future of his playground business, he says he will not give up on his goal to make every playground in Windsor, Essex accessible. Sarita Varanasi, MediaPlex News.
Pauline Brunet is a graduate and a singer-songwriter. Today, she joins us with an original song.
Hello everyone, this is Paula Uñay, and this song that I'm going to play for you is an original song that I wrote. It's called Eternity. It's a song that I wrote for my grandparents, and it's about how time passes and changes, and how you get old and the distance, and you're distant from the people that you love. The connection that you have with the people that you love is real. So this song is basically about my grandparents, who I haven't seen in a long time, and that is just my message to tell them that despite the distance that separates us and the time, we are always going to be together for eternity. El tiempo muere yo pensando y esperando a volverte a encontrar. Las nubes viajan, las horas pasan, y yo aquí soñando con poderte abrazar. ¿Cómo es posible que pronto te vayas y así me voy a encontrar? Sin salida, solución en el que solo quiero oír tu voz. Pensar que tu rostro no es igual. pues te quiero aquí para que borres mi pesar y de a pocos nos ayude a sanar. Solo eso necesito, un guía en mi andar, como hace mucho tiempo cuando me oías cantar, cuando éramos tú y yo contra el mundo sin color.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Zachary Balog.
And I'm Grace Little.
And you've been watching
the MediaPlex Insider.